August 12, 1947. A Harlem mother named Catherine Williams received a telegram that would change history. Her son, Jerome, 17 years old, honor student, worked weekends at his uncle's barber shop, was dead in a Louisiana parish jail. Official cause, suicide by hanging. But Catherine knew her boy. Jerome didn't own a belt. The jail said he used his shoelaces. Jerome wore slip-on shoes. The story didn't add up. Nothing about Louisiana added up. And when Catherine Williams walked into Bumpy Johnson's office on 145th Street 3 days later, carrying that telegram in, shaking hands, she set in motion 6 days that would teach a Southern sheriff what happens when you touch Harlem's children. See, 1947 was a different America. Jim Crow ruled the South with an iron fist. Lynchings weren't investigated. They were ignored. A black teenager's life in Louisiana was worth less than nothing, especially when the man who killed him wore a badge. Sheriff Clayton Broussard had been killing black folks in Beaumont Parish for 12 years. Everyone knew it. Nobody could touch him. He had the judges, the politicians, the governor's office in his pocket. He'd lynched at least 9 people that anyone could prove, probably dozens more that got buried in swamps and forgotten. Jerome Williams became number 10 because he made one mistake. He looked a white woman in the eye when she spoke to him at a bus station. That was it. That was the crime. Eye contact. Broussard arrested Jerome for disturbing the peace and threatening behavior. The white woman never filed a complaint. Didn't matter. Broussard took that boy to his jail, and 3 days later, Jerome was hanging from a pipe in his cell. Broussard called it suicide, filed the paperwork, case closed. Just another dead black kid from up north who didn't understand Southern ways. But Catherine Williams understood one thing perfectly. Bumpy Johnson didn't let anyone kill Harlem's children. Not the mob, not the police, not some backwoods sheriff 1,500 miles away. She'd heard the stories. Bumpy had gone to war with Dutch Schultz over Harlem. He'd stared down the 5 families. He'd survived Alcatraz and come back more powerful than before. If anyone could get justice for Jerome, it was him. Bumpy sat behind his desk that August afternoon, listening. He didn't interrupt, didn't ask questions, just listened to Catherine Williams cry as she described her son, how he wanted to be a lawyer, how he'd saved money for college, how he'd gone to Louisiana for 1 week to visit his grandmother, and never came home. When she finished, Bumpy was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was ice. "You'll have justice in 6 days. Go home. Bury your son. I'll handle the rest." Catherine looked at him with desperate hope mixed with doubt. Louisiana was far away. Sheriff Broussard was protected by the entire state apparatus. How could one man in Harlem, even Bumpy Johnson, reach across state lines and touch a sheriff who'd been untouchable for over a decade? She didn't know what Bumpy understood that most people didn't. Power isn't about distance. It's about pressure points, and every powerful man, no matter how protected, has one. The next morning, August 16th, Bumpy made one phone call, not to a lawyer, not to a politician, to a man named Solomon Price in New Orleans. Solomon ran the largest black-owned insurance company in the South. He insured sharecroppers, small businesses, churches, the economic backbone of the Black South. More importantly, Solomon had information. He knew which white businessmen in Louisiana were overextended, which politicians had secrets, which sheriffs had side businesses they didn't report. Within 6 hours, Solomon called back with a file on Clayton Broussard that was devastating. Broussard wasn't just a racist sheriff, he was a criminal empire. He ran an illegal gambling operation across 3 parishes, clearing $70,000 a year, more than 10 times his official salary. He had protection from Governor Earl Bennett, who took 20% off the top, in exchange for making sure state investigators never looked too closely at Beaumont Parish. The governor needed that money because he was running for Senate, and his campaign was hemorrhaging cash. Broussard was his golden goose, untouchable as long as the money flowed. Bumpy studied the file like a general studying a battlefield. He saw the architecture of Broussard's power immediately. The gambling money flowed to the governor. The governor's protection flowed back to Broussard. Break that cycle, and Broussard would fall. But how do you pressure a governor from 1,500 miles away? You don't pressure the governor, you pressure everyone who gives the governor money. By August 17th, Bumpy had made 17 phone calls. Every single one was to a black business owner, church leader, or community organizer in Louisiana. The message was simple and devastating. Governor Bennett protected the man who lynched Jerome Williams. If Bennett wins his Senate race, more of our children will die. Stop his money. Within 24 hours, the economic pressure began. Black insurance premiums, tens of thousands of dollars monthly, flowing to Bennett-connected insurance companies, stopped. Contracts with black-owned construction companies building roads were quietly canceled. Church congregations that had been donating to Bennett's Senate campaign pulled their support and very publicly stated why. Bennett protected the child killer. The governor's campaign manager called it a financial hemorrhage. In 2 days, they'd lost $83,000 in contracts, donations, and business relationships. More critically, they'd lost the narrative. Black newspapers from New Orleans to Baton Rouge ran front-page stories about Jerome Williams with one question: why is Governor Bennett protecting Sheriff Broussard? Bennett's white donors started asking the same question. August 19th, 4 days since Catherine Williams walked into Bumpy's office. The governor was panicking. His Senate campaign was collapsing. White donors were getting nervous about the negative press. Black economic pressure was costing real money. And every newspaper in Louisiana was asking why the governor's office had never investigated Sheriff Broussard despite 12 years of complaints. Bennett made a call to Broussard. The conversation was short and brutal. You're costing me the Senate race. Fix this. Broussard didn't understand. Fix what? The kid was dead, buried, forgotten, just like always. How is this different? You killed a kid from Harlem. Bennett's voice was acid. You killed someone Bumpy Johnson cared about. That man just cut off $80,000 of my campaign money in 2 days. Every black business owner in Louisiana is asking why I protect you. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to re-sign today with a full confession, or I'm going to feed you to the state investigators myself. Broussard felt his world tilting. You can't. We have a deal I'd been paying you for. The deal's over. You're toxic. Resign or I'll destroy you. But Broussard had been a bully too long to back down, especially to pressure from some Harlem gangster he'd never met. He refused, hung up on the governor, made his own calls to his contacts in the state legislature, the judges he'd paid off, the politicians who owed him favors. Every single one told him the same thing. We can't help you. This is too public now. Bumpy Johnson has made you radioactive. That night, Broussard sat in his office trying to understand how his world had collapsed in 4 days. He'd killed dozens of black folks without consequence. What made Jerome Williams different? He didn't understand that Jerome's mother had done something none of the other victims' families could do. She'd reached someone with power who considered Harlem's children sacred. And Bumpy Johnson had done what he always did, found the pressure point and pressed until something broke. August 20th, Day 5, Governor Bennett went nuclear. He announced a full state investigation into Beaumont Parish Sheriff's Department. The investigators found everything: the illegal gambling operation, the unreported income, the pattern of suspicious deaths in Broussard's jail, the payoffs to state officials. They found it all because Solomon Price's people had already documented everything and anonymously delivered it to the right investigative team in a folder marked Jerome Williams Exhibit A. By noon, state police had arrested 3 of Broussard's deputies. By evening, the state attorney general had issued a warrant for Broussard himself. The charges were extensive: murder, conspiracy to commit murder, operating an illegal gambling enterprise, bribery of state officials, obstruction of justice. Broussard ran, took $60,000 in cash from his office safe, and disappeared into the bayou, thinking he could wait it out, that this would blow over like everything always did. He was wrong. August 21st, Day 6. Catherine Williams received another telegram, this one from Governor Bennett's office. Sheriff Clayton Broussard was in custody. He'd been arrested attempting to flee to Texas. He was being charged with first-degree murder in Jerome Williams's death, along with 17 other counts. The governor's office was conducting a full review of every death in Beaumont Parish Jail over the past 12 years. The message ended with something unprecedented: an official apology from the state of Louisiana for Jerome Williams's death and a promise of full prosecution. But the real message arrived that afternoon, hand-delivered to Catherine Williams's apartment by a courier she didn't recognize. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper with a photograph. The photo showed Governor Earl Bennett on his knees in his own office, hands clasped, head bowed, begging someone off camera for mercy. On the back, someone had written 4 words: "Justice for your son." Catherine never found out who took that photograph or how they got it, but Harlem knew. The story spread like wildfire. Bumpy Johnson had made a Louisiana governor kneel, had reached across 1,500 miles, and destroyed a sheriff who'd thought himself untouchable, had done it all without firing a shot, without leaving New York, without violence, just pressure, just strategy. Just the cold calculation of a man who understood that power isn't about how loud you scream or how hard you hit. It's about finding what someone values most and threatening to take it away. Broussard went to trial in November 1947. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison at Angola State Penitentiary, in a prison full of black inmates who knew exactly what he'd done, for 12 years. He lasted 8 months before someone put a sharpened spoon through his throat in the prison yard. The guards said they didn't see who did it. Nobody believed them. Nobody cared. Governor Bennett lost his Senate race by 11 points. The black vote in Louisiana had turned against him completely. He served out his term as governor and retired from politics, his career destroyed by one telegram, one mother's grief, and one man in Harlem who decided Jerome Williams's life mattered. The story became legend, not just in Harlem, but across the South. Black families heard it and understood something profound. They weren't alone. Someone up north with power considered their children valuable enough to go to war for. That knowledge changed things. Not everything, not quickly, but it planted a seed that would grow into the civil rights movement a decade later. The understanding that black lives had worth, that justice was possible, that power could be challenged. Bumpy never spoke publicly about Jerome Williams, but in Harlem, mothers knew. When their children faced danger, when the system failed them, when justice seemed impossible, they knew where to go. They knew who would answer. They knew that Bumpy Johnson's office door on 145th Street was open to anyone who needed what the law wouldn't provide. Someone who would actually do something about it. That's the thing about true power. It's not about what you can destroy. It's about what you choose to protect. Bumpy protected Harlem. All of it. Every corner, every family, every child. And when someone 1,500 miles away killed one of those children, he made sure the entire state of Louisiana understood that Harlem's children weren't expendable. They were valuable. They were protected. They were sacred. 6 days. 1 phone call to start. 17 phone calls to build pressure. $83,000 in economic damage. 1 governor, brought to his knees, one sheriff destroyed, one mother given justice that the entire American legal system said was impossible. What would you do if someone killed your child and the law said there was nothing anyone could do about it? Would you accept it? Would you give up? Or would you find someone who understood that justice isn't about what's legal, it's about what's right? Catherine Williams chose to fight. She walked into Bumpy Johnson's office carrying grief and a telegram and faith that someone, somewhere, would care enough to act. And Bumpy proved that faith wasn't misplaced. He proved that power used wisely can cross any distance, break any protection, bring down anyone who thinks they're above consequences. That's the legacy, not violence, not fear, strategic precision, calculated pressure, the understanding that every system, no matter how corrupt, has a weak point. Find it, press it, watch the entire structure collapse. If you found this story powerful, drop a comment below. Tell me, should more stories like this be told? Should we remember the names of people like Jerome Williams and Catherine Williams alongside the names of the powerful men who avenged them? And if you want to hear more stories of strategic justice, of intelligence defeating oppression, of communities protecting their own against impossible odds, hit that subscribe button. Because history is full of these moments, we've just forgotten to tell them. Let's change that, together.